My name is Ava Monroe. And when I was 12 years old, my mother locked the front door behind me and told me not to come back. It was January. Snow was falling sideways. And I was still wearing my school sneakers. She didn't even yell. That's the part people never understand. She didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She just looked at me calm cold and said, "You've ruined enough of my life. Go ruin someone else's." Then she handed me a trash bag with my clothes in it, like I was something she was taking out to the curb. For 23 years, she told everyone I ran away, that I was a troubled child, unstable, dramatic, ungrateful. She cried at church about her missing daughter. She posted on Facebook every year on my birthday, "If you see this, Ava, please come home. We forgive you." Forgive me. But I didn't run away. She erased me. And for a long time, I believed I deserved it. I grew up in Cedar Ridge, Colorado. Quiet suburb. White fences. Two-story houses. The kind of neighborhood where people wave, but never really look at you. My father died when I was 8. Heart attack. After that, everything changed. My mother changed. Before he died, she used to braid my hair for school. After he died, she barely looked at me. And my older brother, Ethan, he became her whole world. Ethan was perfect. Varsity basketball. Straight A's. Charming smile. I was too sensitive. Too emotional. Too much like your father. She said that like it was an insult. The first time she slapped me, I was 9. Because I asked if we could visit Dad's grave on his birthday. She said, "Stop living in the past." I learned quickly. Silence kept me safer. But Ethan enjoyed it. He'd whisper things when she wasn't around. "You're the reason Dad's stressed out. You're the reason Mom cries at night. If you disappeared, everything would be easier." I was 12 when it escalated. That winter, money got tight. Or at least that's what she said. One night I overheard her arguing on the phone. "I don't care what the insurance paid. It's not enough." Insurance. I didn't understand then. I just knew she was angry more often. And I became the easiest target. The night she kicked me out started over something small. It always does. I burned macaroni. That's it. I burned macaroni. Ethan laughed. She stood up slowly from the table and said, "You can't even do one thing right." I apologized. She walked into her bedroom. I thought it was over. Then she came back holding a trash bag. She had already packed it. That's what still haunts me. She had already packed it. "You don't appreciate what I do," she said quietly. "You're a burden. You've been a burden since the day you were born." I remember looking at Ethan, waiting for him to say something. Anything. He just shrugged. Like this was normal. Like this was deserved. She pushed me outside. Locked the door. And that was it. No dramatique. No second thoughts. Just silence. And snow. I slept that night in a bus station. I told a woman there my mom was picking me up in the morning. She wasn't. Child services found me 2 days later. They called my mother. She said, "She ran away. We can't control her." I remember screaming into the phone. I didn't run away. She hung up. And just like that, the official record said I was a runaway. Case closed. Foster care is where you learn how disposable people can be. I moved through 5 homes before I turned 18. Some were decent. Some weren't. One woman told me straight to my face, "No one keeps a kid this long unless something's wrong with them." I started to believe something was wrong with me. But I also learned something else. Survival. I worked after school. Saved everything. Got scholarships. Left Colorado the day I turned 18. I never called her again. She never called me either. But she told everyone she tried. Fast forward 23 years. I'm 35 now. I built a life. Not glamorous. Not flashy. But mine. I work in nonprofit housing law in Chicago. I help families avoid eviction. Sometimes when I look at little girls clutching trash bags of clothes, my chest tightens. Because I remember. I always remember. 2 months ago, I got a Facebook message from someone named Linda Matthews. I almost ignored it. But the preview said, "I know what your mother did." My hands started shaking. We hadn't spoken in over 2 decades. I didn't stalk her page. I didn't check her photos. I didn't want to know. But that message. I was your neighbor in Cedar Ridge. I've kept something for years. I stared at it for an hour before replying. What are you talking about? Her response came quickly. She lied. About everything. And someone is finally asking questions. Someone. My heart started pounding. Who? She sent one word. Lawyer. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I received an email. From a law firm in Denver. Subject line. Estate inquiry, Monroe family. Estate? My father's last name was Monroe. I opened it. Dear Ms. Ava Monroe, we are attempting to contact you regarding undisclosed beneficiary matters connected to the late Thomas Monroe. Undisclosed beneficiary matters. My father died when I was 8. What undisclosed matters? The email continued. We have reason to believe that information pertaining to a trust fund and life insurance policy may have been intentionally withheld. Intentionally withheld. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. My mother always said there was barely any insurance money, that we struggled, that she sacrificed everything. The email ended with, we recommend immediate in-person discussion. Discretion advised. Discretion. That word chilled me. 3 days later, I was on a flight back to Colorado. First time in 23 years. The mountains looked the same, but my stomach felt like it was full of glass. When I landed, there were 2 men waiting. One in a suit. One in a police uniform. Police. I froze. The suited man approached gently. Ms. Monroe. I nodded. I'm Daniel Harris. Estate attorney. He glanced at the officer. For your protection. Protection from who? I already knew the answer. We sat in a private office near the airport. And that's when my entire childhood cracked open. Mr. Harris slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents dated 3 months before my father died. A trust. In my name. $800,000. To be accessed at age 30. There were also life insurance policies. Total payout. $1.4 million. My breathing got shallow. That can't be right, I whispered. It is, he said calmly. The funds were redirected into accounts controlled solely by your mother. We suspect misrepresentation of guardianship disclosures. I stared at him. She said we were broke. He nodded slowly. She told probate court you had run away at age 12. Run away. There it was again. The lie that erased me. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. There's more. My brother Ethan had filed for bankruptcy 2 years ago. Multiple failed business ventures. Gambling debts. He recently attempted to access the remaining trust funds, claiming I was deceased. Deceased. I felt like I was outside my body. He submitted falsified documentation. The police officer spoke then. We've opened an investigation. I thought the worst part was being thrown out. I was wrong. The worst part was discovering I was worth something all along. And she knew it. My mother didn't throw me out because I was a burden. She threw me out because I was an obstacle. To money. To control. To freedom from having to split anything with me. She erased me financially. And socially. And legally. So she could keep everything. And for 23 years, she lived comfortably. While I slept in shelters. While I worked 2 jobs in college. While I skipped meals. Because she decided I didn't deserve what my father left me. Mr. Harris looked at me carefully. You have options. Options. For the first time in my life, I wasn't powerless. And that terrified me more than anything. This is where most people think the story becomes about revenge. But revenge isn't screaming. It isn't violence. It isn't chaos. Revenge is exposure. And I was about to expose everything. I didn't go to my mother's house right away. That would have been too easy. Too emotional. And I had learned, the hard way, that emotions were weapons in that house. Instead, I checked into a hotel 20 minutes away from Cedar Ridge. The same town where I had once stood in the snow with a trash bag of clothes. Funny how the body remembers geography. The air felt heavier there. Thicker. Like the past was still floating in it. That night, Mr. Harris sent copies of the documents to my encrypted email. I read every single page. Trust establishment. Beneficiary designation. Court filings. And then the one that made my hands tremble. Affidavit of parental statement. Minor child runaway. My mother's signature. Stating I had voluntarily abandoned the home. Stating she had exhausted all attempts to locate me. Stating she feared I was involved in dangerous influences. Dangerous influences. I was 12. I still slept with a nightlight. There was another document attached. Filed 6 months after I was kicked out. Petition for sole beneficiary access due to abandonment. She had legally positioned herself as my father's only surviving dependent. Because I was missing. Not missing. Disposed of. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in 23 years. I drove past the house. Same beige siding. Same maple tree in the yard. Different car in the driveway. A black Lexus. Paid for with my father's money? Or mine? I didn't stop. I just drove slowly. And for a second, just a second, I saw her through the kitchen window. Older. Grayer. But unmistakably her. Laughing. Laughing. Like life had been kind to her. Mr. Harris called that afternoon. There's an additional complication. I almost laughed. Of course there was. Your brother has been contacted by investigators. He's attempting to move assets. Move them where? Offshore. My stomach twisted. So he knows. Yes. Of course he did. Ethan had always been quick when it came to protecting himself. He must have panicked. And panic makes people sloppy. That evening my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something told me not to. Hello. Silence. Then breathing. And then a voice I hadn't heard in over 2 decades. Ava. My throat closed. Ethan. You've made a mistake, he said calmly. A mistake? By existing? I replied. He exhaled sharply. You don't understand what you're getting into. Oh, I understand perfectly. You think you're entitled to something. Entitled? I started laughing. Actually laughing. I was entitled when I was 8, Ethan. Dad put my name on it. That money kept this family afloat. That money kept you afloat. His tone shifted. Colder. You don't want to drag Mom through this. Drag her through this. She dragged me through snow. You should have stayed gone, he said quietly. And then he hung up. That was the first time in 23 years I felt anger stronger than fear. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't scared for her. He was scared for himself. Because if the investigation went forward, fraud charges weren't just civil. They were criminal. The following morning, I agreed to file a formal civil claim. Asset recovery. Fraud. Embezzlement of minor trust funds. Misrepresentation in probate court. It felt surreal signing my name. Like I was signing someone else's life. But no. I was reclaiming mine. News travels fast in small towns. Especially when police start asking questions. By the 3rd day, my old high school friend Maya messaged me. I just saw 2 detectives at your mom's house. What's going on? I hadn't spoken to Maya since I left. But unlike others she had tried. For years. Before eventually giving up. I didn't run away. I typed back. 3 dots appeared instantly. I always knew that. I stared at the screen. Tears blurred my vision. Someone knew. Someone had doubted the story. That afternoon, I received a voicemail. Her voice. My mother. Soft. Fragile. Performing. Ava, sweetheart. I don't know what's happening, but your brother says lawyers are involved. If this is some misunderstanding, we can talk privately. There's no need to embarrass the family. Embarrass the family. Not, I'm sorry. Not. Are you okay? Just damage control. I didn't call her back. Instead, I forwarded the voicemail to Mr. Harris. He replied with 1 sentence. Do not engage without counsel present. For the first time in my life, someone was protecting me. 2 days later, everything escalated. Ethan was formally served. And he did what desperate men do. He went public first. Facebook post. Long. Emotional. My sister, who abandoned our family years ago, has resurfaced trying to extort money from our widowed mother. Widowed mother. Extort. The comments were immediate. Oh my God, that poor woman. I remember when Ava ran away. So sad she's doing this now. 23 years of narrative. Working exactly as designed. I stared at the screen. And for a split second, I almost backed down. Because fighting meant reopening every wound. But then Mr. Harris called. They've made a tactical mistake. What do you mean? Public statements create liability, especially if provably false. I felt something shift inside me. He wasn't emotional about this. He was clinical. And truth, when documented, is powerful. That evening, a local news outlet contacted me. Apparently someone had tipped them. Possibly Linda, the old neighbor. They asked for comment regarding alleged estate disputes. I hesitated. Going public meant there was no turning back. But staying silent meant their version remained uncontested. So I agreed. On one condition. Full documentation presented. Not gossip. Not tears. Paper. Proof. The interview aired 3 days later. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I simply told the truth. I did not run away. I was removed from the home. Court documents show funds legally designated to me were accessed under false claims of abandonment. They displayed copies on screen. Signatures. Dates. Amounts. And then the reporter said something that echoed through Cedar Ridge. There is currently an active investigation into potential financial fraud. Potential. But heavy. The shift was immediate. Comments changed. People started digging. Old neighbors remembered things. Linda came forward publicly. She told me Ava left voluntarily. But I always wondered why a 12-year-old would leave without shoes. Without shoes. I had forgotten that detail. But she remembered. Then came the second blow. Bank records leaked. Large transfers. Casino withdrawals. Ethan's name. My mother as joint account holder. Gambling. So that's where part of it went. While I rationed food in foster homes, they were sitting at poker tables. My mother tried calling again. 23 missed calls in one night. Then a text. You're destroying us. Destroying us? No. I was revealing them. There's a difference. The police requested I remain in Colorado temporarily. Charges were being considered. I agreed. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted closure. And closure requires confrontation. The confrontation was scheduled for mediation first. Neutral office. Attorneys present. No teatrix. When she walked in, my chest tightened. She looked smaller than I remembered. But her eyes were the same. Calculating. She didn't hug me. Didn't cry. She just said, "You look well." As if we'd run into each other at the grocery store. I survived? I replied. Ethan avoided eye contact. For the first time in his life. He looked uncertain. Her lawyer began with a proposal. Settlement. Confidential. Undisclosed sum. No admission of guilt. In exchange for dropping criminal cooperation. I almost laughed. They still thought I cared more about money than truth. I want a public correction, I said calmly. My lawyer nodded. A signed statement acknowledging Ms. Monroe did not run away. Silence. My mother's jaw tightened. That would ruin us socially. I held her gaze. You already ruined me socially. 23 years ago. She leaned forward. And for the first time, the mask slipped. You were always weak, she whispered. There it is, I said softly. That's who she was. Not a grieving widow. Not a struggling mother. A woman who valued image over child. The mediation ended without agreement. Criminal review moved forward. And something unexpected happened. Former church members reached out. Quietly. Apologizing. They had believed her. Because she cried so convincingly. But now. The documents spoke louder. That night. Alone in my hotel room. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. Exhausted. Because revenge fantasies are dramatic. But real justice is paperwork. Phone calls. Waiting. And reliving everything you tried to bury. But this wasn't over. Because there was one final piece I hadn't addressed. The trust wasn't fully drained. there was still a remaining balance. And someone had recently attempted to liquidate it entirely, using a forged death certificate. Mine. When Mr. Harris told me about the forged death certificate, I didn't react at first. I just stared at him, because there's something deeply unsettling about hearing that, on paper, you are already dead. Who filed it? I asked quietly. He slid the document toward me. Applicant: Ethan Monroe. Supporting guardian affidavit: Margaret Monroe. My mother. Again. Same signature. Same careful handwriting. The date was 6 months ago. 6 months ago. I was very much alive. Working. Breathing. Existing. But to them, on paper, I was deceased. Conveniently, they submitted it to release the remaining trust balance, Mr. Harris said. How much? $412,000. $400,000. That's what my existence was worth to them. Again. I pressed my fingers against my temples. How did they expect this to work? They claimed you died overseas. No immediate documentation available due to jurisdictional delays. The audacity was almost impressive. They had rehearsed this. Planned it. Constructed a narrative where I conveniently died before turning 35, just before full legal review rights expanded. My brother wasn't just reckless. He was strategic. The forgery changed everything. Civil fraud is one thing. Forgery of a death certificate? That crosses into felony territory. Real prison time territory. And when that reality sank in, the cracks started forming. 2 days later, Ethan requested a separate meeting. Without our mother. His attorney contacted mine. He's willing to cooperate. Of course he was. Ethan had always known when to jump ship. We met in a private conference room downtown. He looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes. For the first time since childhood. He didn't look superior. He looked scared. They said it's federal now, he muttered. It is, I replied calmly. He swallowed. This wasn't supposed to go that far. I almost laughed. What part of faking my death did you think was minor? He ran a hand through his hair. It was Mom's idea. There it was. The pivot. Blame deflection. It was always Mom's idea, I said softly. Burn macaroni? My fault. Dad's stress? My fault. Money missing? Mom's idea. He exhaled shakily. She said you'd never come back. She underestimated something. Survival changes people. I was a kid too, he said suddenly. The words surprised me. You think I had control? I studied him. You had choices. He flinched. She told me if I defended you, she'd cut me off too. There it was. Control. Divide and conquer. She didn't just erase me. She isolated him. But he still chose comfort. And I chose exile. We are defined by those choices. What do you want? I asked finally. He looked up. If I testify that she orchestrated the filings, they'll reduce my charges. Of course. Self-preservation. Why should I care? He hesitated. Because she'll drag this out. She'll fight dirty. Fight dirty. That was her specialty. That night, I sat alone again. Thinking about loyalty. About childhood. About how families can fracture not with explosions, but with quiet, calculated decisions. I didn't hate Ethan the way I thought I would. Hate requires passion. I felt something colder. Detachment. 3 days later, everything detonated. Formal charges were filed. Fraud. Forgery. Misrepresentation of estate assets. Conspiracy. My mother was served at home. Neighbors watched. Of course they did.
Cedar Ridge Drive en spectacle.
But this time, the tears weren't working. Because documents had already circulated. The news interview had already aired. The narrative had shifted. Then came the moment I didn't expect. Church leadership released a statement. They acknowledged supporting a false runaway narrative without verification. They apologized publicly. Not just to me, but by name. Ava Monroe did not run away. Reading that sentence felt like oxygen entering lungs that had been underwater for decades. I didn't realize how much that lie had shaped my identity. Runaway. Unstable. Ungrateful. Now corrected. Publicly. My mother attempted one final move. She called a press conference. Yes, a press conference. In her living room. She wore gray, soft makeup. The grieving widow looked perfected. "This is a misunderstanding," she began. She cried. Of course she cried. But then a reporter asked the wrong question. Why file a death certificate for someone you claimed was missing? Silence. A flicker in her eyes. And just like that, the performance cracked. She stumbled over her answer. Blamed paperwork errors. Blamed attorneys. Blamed stress. But confidence was gone. The mask slipped. And once people see behind a mask, they can't unsee it. Ethan officially entered a cooperation agreement 2 days later. He provided emails, messages, voice memos, recordings of my mother instructing him what to say if questioned. I listened to one of them. Her voice calm, controlled. If she ever resurfaces, we stick to the runaway story. Sympathy protects us. Sympathy protects us. Not truth. Protection. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Clarity. She had never lost control of me. She had lost access to money. That's all. The plea negotiations moved quickly after that. Ethan would face reduced sentencing and financial penalties. My mother was less fortunate. Primary orchestrator. Primary beneficiary. Primary signature. Her lawyer attempted one last settlement offer to me directly. Full financial restitution. Confidential agreement. No jail time. Just fines. And silence. Silence. Again. They wanted silence. 23 years ago, silence protected them. Now it would protect them again. I declined. People think revenge feels explosive. Victorious. It doesn't. It feels quiet. Measured. Like choosing not to repeat a cycle. I didn't want her destroyed. I wanted truth documented. Consequences applied. And my name cleared. That's it. Sentencing day arrived faster than expected. Federal courtroom. Neutral walls. Cold air. She didn't look at me when she entered. Not once. The judge reviewed the filings. The forged documents. The misrepresentations. The impact statement. And then he asked if I wished to speak. My heart pounded. For years I imagined screaming, telling her everything she did to me. But when I stood, my voice was calm. You didn't just steal money, I said. You stole my childhood narrative. You told the world I abandoned you. I was 12. The room was silent. I don't need revenge. I needed acknowledgement. I paused. And today I got it. That was all. She received a custodial sentence. Not long enough to destroy a life, but long enough to mark one. Public record.
Permanent.
Irreversible. After court, reporters gathered outside. They asked if I felt vindicated. I said something I hadn't planned. I feel free. Because freedom isn't about winning. It's about no longer carrying someone else's lie. But there was still one final chapter left. One that had nothing to do with courtrooms. Or money. Or charges. It had to do with me. And what I would choose to do with the life that had been withheld. Because $400,000 was still legally mine. Recovered. Restored. Transferred. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. The money hit my account on a Thursday morning. $412,000. I stared at the number for a long time. Not because I felt rich. But because I felt 8 years old again. 8-year-old me, sitting at the kitchen table while my father explained what a savings account was. He used to say, "Money isn't power, Ava. It's protection." Protection. That's what he tried to leave me. And for 23 years, it was stolen. Now it was back. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt careful. Because money can rebuild. Or it can repeat cycles. And I had no intention of repeating anything that woman taught me. The first thing I did was unexpected. I didn't buy a house. I didn't take a vacation. I didn't post about it. I opened a foundation. Small at first. Quiet. The Monroe Protection Fund. Named after my father. Its purpose? Legal assistance for minors abandoned by guardians. Kids labeled runaways when they weren't. Kids erased on paper. Just like me. I funded the first year entirely from the recovered trust. Every time a child walked into that office clutching a trash bag, I made sure there was someone there who believed them. That was my revenge. Not destruction. Interruption. Of the cycle. But there was one last thing I needed to do. One last place I had to visit. The house had been sold. Court fees. Asset seizures. Reputation damage. Cedar Ridge had moved on quickly once sympathy evaporated. Image matters there. And once the image cracks, people scatter. I stood in front of the house one final time. Not to see her. She was already serving her sentence. Not to see Ethan. He had relocated quietly after his reduced sentence and financial penalties. I stood there for 12-year-old me. The girl in sneakers in the snow. The girl who thought she deserved it. I didn't ruin anything, I whispered. The wind carried the words away. But I heard them. And that was enough. A month later, I received a letter. Handwritten. From prison. Her handwriting. Recognizable instantly. I almost threw it away. But curiosity won. The letter wasn't long. No apology. Of course not. Instead, it said, "You've always been dramatic. This didn't need to go so far. Families handle things privately." Privately. That word again. Silence disguised as dignity. I folded the letter carefully. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel hurt reading her words. I felt distance. Emotional distance. And that's when I realized something powerful. She no longer had access to my nervous system. My peace wasn't reactive anymore. That was freedom. 6 months later, I was invited to speak at a legal conference. Topic: Guardianship Fraud and Minor Asset Protection. I stood at a podium. Bright lights overhead. Rows of attorneys in front of me. And I told them what happens when documentation replaces humanity. When signatures override truth. When children are labeled instead of heard. I didn't name her. I didn't need to. The system had already recorded her name permanently. Public record.
Permanent.
Irreversible. Just like she tried to make my disappearance. After the conference, a young woman approached me. Mid-20s. Nervous smile. "I saw your interview months ago," she said. "I was kicked out at 14. I thought it was my fault." My chest tightened. "What happened?" I asked gently. "My parents told everyone I left for a boyfriend. I didn't. They just didn't want me anymore." The familiarity of that sentence. It hit deep. "You weren't disposable," I told her. And I meant it. Because I finally understood it about myself. People often ask if I forgave her. The honest answer? Forgiveness wasn't necessary. Closure was. And closure came from truth being documented. From lies corrected. From records amended. The official runaway designation was overturned. My juvenile file corrected. It now reads, "Minor displaced due to guardian misconduct." Those words might seem clinical. But to me they are oxygen. Because they reflect reality. Not narrative. 1 year after sentencing, I received notification that she requested early release due to health concerns. I was asked if I wanted to submit a statement. I declined. Not out of cruelty, but because I no longer needed to participate in her story. That's something people misunderstand about revenge. The most powerful moment is when you stop needing it. I ran into Ethan once. At an airport. Of all places. Full circle. He looked thinner. Older. Regret has a way of aging people. We stood in awkward silence. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Not defensive. Not calculated. Just tired. I studied his face. For years I imagined this moment. But when it came, I felt neutral. "I hope you figure out who you are without her voice," I said. Because that's what I had to do. Rebuild identity without the narrative she fed us. He nodded. And that was it. No hook. No dramatic reconciliation. Just two adults walking in different directions. Sometimes at night, I still think about that snowy January evening. About how close I was to believing I was nothing. About how easily paperwork erased me. And how easily society accepted it. But then I think about the foundation. The children. The corrected records. The courtroom silence when truth was read aloud. And I realized something important. She tried to erase me legally. But she accidentally trained me legally. She tried to make me disappear. But she built the woman who now ensures others aren't erased. That's irony. And irony is a quiet form of justice. If you're listening to this, and someone once labeled you something you weren't, runaway, burden, problem, mistake, I want you to hear this clearly. Labels are tools. They are used to control narratives. But documentation can be rewritten. Truth can surface. And silence is not strength. Exposure is. My name is Ava Monroe. I was 12 when my mother locked me out in the snow. For 23 years, she told the world I ran away. But I didn't run. I survived. And when the truth finally surfaced, I didn't destroy her. I dismantled the lie. And sometimes, that's the most powerful revenge of all. Not rage. Not ruin. Just record. Corrected. Forever.